different topics related to software development, something that I personally like to call the human side of software development, something that is detached from writing code to our uh, I know that this has a very different year than all the past years, full of very different circumstances in the whole world. I know that in Beirut it has been uh, even worse with the accidents happening there. I know that students also have your fair share of stress related to working from home, related uh, to exams recently. So I hope that today, it's a Friday evening. I hope that we can all relax, chill out a bit, sit down with a cup of hot tea or coffee, whatever you prefer, and listen to some stories about software development. So let me introduce myself very briefly before I start. I've been working in tech industry for almost 11 years now. I started in 2009 as a software developer when I was still at university. So I was studied part-time. Uh, I started as a Ruby developer, and over time I moved to a full stack developer position. Back when I started, full stack wasn't really a thing because JavaScript was used just to add the snow effect on the websites during winter and nothing really serious. Over time, I moved to engineering manager position. Currently, I work as an engineering manager at a company called Eclectic IQ. It's a software. We write cybersecurity software. We write a platform for security analysts so that they can detect the threats that are coming from different sources and prevent them from doing any harm to the organizations where they work. So my job is not writing code full time anymore. I still code from time to time, but my current responsibility, there's technical writers, that they are forming the best team possible. So I'm mentoring, I'm coaching people, I'm supporting them in their development, growth. I'm responsible for different processes. And also, I'm responsible for making sure that the other sides of the company, that different departments can collaborate with my team as successfully and as smoothly as possible. I originally come from Poland. I lived in various parts of the world. I spent some time in Germany, Spain. I spent a couple of years in Singapore, and currently I live in one of my favorite cities in the world, in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. Besides my full-time job, like to record videos and write articles about how to become a better developer. I started this year as kind of a pandemic project where I realized that a lot of people will be out of jobs and will need to find something new. And I thought that I can share my knowledge and experience. I created a website called notonlycode.org, share some writings and recordings. Today, I want to talk about 5 things that I have learned in my career as a software developer. And I think that I learned them a bit late. If I had a proper mentor, if I had some coach maybe earlier in my career, I could have understood these things earlier and I could have maybe not prevented some mistakes, but definitely do some things better. Not that my career has been bad or so, but it's better to learn from mistakes of other people than your own, right? So I want to share these couple of lessons. The first thing is something that might look a bit counterintuitive to you, which is that you are not paid for the code you write as a software developer. Career was software developer, which means that the goal of my work used 3,000 wooden pallets that some companies donated, some companies lent it to. As you can see on this photo, there is some music band playing there. The project lasted for 2 years. After 2 years, they dismantled it. But the fact that they were able to build something like this within a very short time, and that the community just stood up and decided we want to have some venue is quite interesting. And why I'm talking about it is that imagine that you are a professional and your goal, your work is about ensuring that the city has enough events and that people have some entertainment. You would never think that part of your job will be to take 3,000 pallets, put them together, and invite music bands there and tell people, hey, this is a temporary place where you can have fun. You would never think about it. But there is a problem to be solved, right? And as a professional, you're dealing with certain constraints. You're dealing with the situation that is thrown at you, and your goal is to solve this problem. And that applies to every profession, also applies to software developers. So, as a software developers, there are a few different examples where you can solve the problem, do your job without writing a single line of code. A service team to explain your customer how to use your software. Like team, you can come with a solution that will maybe achieve only 80% of the functionality, but it will take 1 week instead of 2 or 3 months. And by this, again, you haven't even written a single line of code yet, but you already provided a value. You found something that will save the company money, that will save the company time, and that will be almost as efficient as the original solution. And of our work, you can suggest using external tool instead of writing one. You think that, oh, I'm being paid as a software developer for writing software, right? But you can find an application, a library that already does what you want to achieve. You can say, hey, let's use external one because it will be cheaper, it will be faster, it is probably better. Someone else maintains it. We do not have to maintain it. So, delegation of writing software is also part of a job of a software developer. So that's the point number one, that we are problem solvers. And most of the problems that are thrown at us will be solved with code in one way or another. But writing code is a mean to achieve something and it's not the goal in itself, at least in the business context, because sometimes you are writing some code just for fun, in which case the writing code is your goal. Uh, the second thing is that you will probably working a few of
Gregory,
the things.
sorry to cut you
Yes,
off.
yes.
Yeah, just your slides are a bit zoomed in, so they're cut off a bit on the edges, and we can't
Oh,
see you too much. Like you're a bit
let
to
me
the right.
check
Yeah,
it.
it's just a minor
Let me
issue.
just,
It's no problem.
yeah, yeah, that's all right. I will just, is it
Yeah,
better if I
yeah.
make myself smaller?
The slides look great now. We can see the whole thing. You're a bit outside of the camera, but that's okay, I guess.
I am out.
You
Okay,
can make yourself bigger. Yeah, there you go.
yes.
Okay, looks great.
All right, let's leave it this way then.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so
Okay.
you will be working 30 to 50 years, probably. I don't know how it is, what is the pension system, what is the expected life expectancy right now in your country. But in most of the world, people are expected to, have a certain period of life where you're learning, studying, then a period of life, the longest period where you are a productive member of society, where you work and produce some value, and then you retire. And usually, this period of life when you are supposed to work is around 40 years. But with the capitalist system all around the world, with the growing life expectancy that right now is around 75 to maybe 85 years, depending on the country, there is a high chance that by the time that you are ready to retire, the government will extend the retirement age to 70, or who knows, maybe even more years. Uh, and I'm not talking about it, not saying that to scare you off. I'm saying that so that you can realize that this will be a really long time. We rarely think about our life in decades because 1 decade is such a long period of time. Like, I've been on this world for 3 decades. So it means that my whole career will be longer than the period of time from my birth till now. Uh, and the important thing, once you realize it, is to think about it in the long run. From my experience, my personal experience, people who start their career very quickly want to achieve something. And we see all these famous people and successful entrepreneurs who achieve something when they are still in their 20s. And we want to emulate them. But we realize that there is a chance that you will achieve something very quickly, that you will be able to retire in your 30s or 40s, most probably you will have to work like 30 to 50 years. And early in my career, I was one of those very eager developers who wanted to who wanted to make very fast progress. And I had a job which was initially a very good job. It was my first job after university. I lived in Poland, which has quite a low cost of living. I worked for a German company, which meant I had a pretty high salary. And that was very motivating, especially for someone who, like me, who grew up in a maybe not poor, but not also not very wealthy family. So being able to save this money was a great motivation, and I was working very hard there. And I was working so hard that I forgot about a lot of other stuff. My social life, even though still existed, was slowly being more and more limited. And I spent evenings studying, like, new programming techniques. I was trying to get better at it. And slowly, uh, I realized that I was burning out. And by the time I realized it, I was really tired with that work, which was, it was just 1 year after I joined that company. 1 year after I joined this great job where I could learn a lot, where I could make very good money, where I could make progress, I realized that I don't want to do it anymore. And that was quite a scary feeling because I was still in my 20s. It was very early in my career, and I thought I don't want to be a programmer anymore. But I've just graduated from computer science. Programming was the only thing that I was really good at. If I could switch a profession, the closest that I could do was doing project management, which meant staying in IT. And I didn't know what to do at that point. Uh, what I did eventually was I quit that job. I told my parents that I will be going to take a year of break, and I bought one-way ticket to New Zealand, which was almost the furthest place on earth that I could go to, and I didn't have really any specific plan, but what to do there. I just knew that I want to take a break, travel a bit, take some break, and then I will figure something out. Uh, that led me to a period of recovery where I slowly started picking up. And I started freelancing a bit. For 1 year, I did only just some small projects. I was working maybe 10 to 15 hours. I did only just some small projects. I was working maybe 10 to 15 hours a week. Travels. It led me to living in Asia. It led me to the whole fact of being burnout was a very, very tough experience for me. And that's why I believe that everyone should be passionate about something in their life, something besides work. Passion is, by definition, is a drive, a willingness to do something. And we often think about passion in terms of uh, either work, or are passionate about their work, they are very willing to do what they do, or something like hobbies, something that will not bring you money or is not your main source of income, something that can actually detach you from your work. And I think that while it is great to be passionate about your work, I believe that passion about something else is crucial. And the reason is that work work can be stressful. Well, let's not kid ourselves. Being a software developer is not the most stressful activity in the world. We are not saving people's lives, at least most of us are not. Uh, Few programmers deal with really critical software that cannot fail. Uh, but we still work in some toxic environments. We have toxic bosses, we have toxic colleagues. We struggle with different things, and passion allows us to be detached from that stress that is related to work. But if your only passion is your work, then you cannot detach yourself from this. Then you don't have a place, you don't have activity that you can do where you can stop thinking about work. Sometimes they are simple things that you had a bad meeting, or someone reviewed your code and said that it is not great, or you had a performance review and your boss wasn't very satisfied with that, and you want to be detached from that. And if you don't have a passion, then you don't have this place, you don't have this time, you don't have this activity that can make you focus on something else and completely forget about work. So that's what I learned a bit late in my career. Now I have a couple of hobbies. Now I focus on my blog. I really like making videos, even though it is related to programming, to software development. It is not directly related to my work, which means that I can actually not think about work when doing that. The next thing is something that I've started thinking about recently. It is about what impact do you as a person have on the world? And you know, I don't want to make it too, because there are 7.5 billion people in the world. We are all very small cogs in this whole machine of the world economy. Uh, but I think that every one of us has some impact on the world. Maybe not the whole world, but some people around us, our customers. Some people use the things that we build, and I'm being more aware of what I, as an individual, what is my impact on all of these. Uh, so let me give you an idea here. I like to think about it on three different levels. First is, what impact do you have on your team's work? As an example, I can be a front-end developer working for Microsoft on Microsoft Teams application. It's a Slack competitor. And as a front-end developer, my impact on the group of people that I work with is that I provide the interface between our services and the users. I make them as smooth, as fast, as user-friendly as possible. On level two, what is the impact of my team on my organization? And if I work for Microsoft Teams, then our application allows people to share information in real time, allows to share documents, allows to communicate with each other either via text or via call. And we fit into the Microsoft Office package, which consists of different applications. That's my team's impact. And the third thing is, how does my organization, which in this case would be Microsoft, impact the world? And in this context, the Microsoft Office package allows businesses to help people share information, to communicate with each other, to pass the documents. And in this case, I, as an individual, can have on the world, even though it's an effort of hundreds or maybe thousands of people, I am part of this impact that we are making on the world. And why I'm talking about it is that this impact can be positive or negative. Uh, Also, it won't be black and white, but you can think about whether what you're doing is actually good or not. Let me give you a counterexample, because Microsoft shall company. Some things that they are not proud of as it is, but it's rather a positive company. But imagine that I am a front-end developer who works on an online casino, and the impact of me is that I provide the front end for roulette, let's say. Now, impact of my team that works on this roulette application on the organization is that we fit into the bunch of casino games. And the level three is that my company, which is the casino, provides entertainment to people. We help people to relax in the evenings, to spend some money on having fun, maybe to win some money. Entertainment is, right? We bring positive impact to the world. But you can think about it also that online casinos lead people to gambling addiction. People can lose their assets, they can lose They can lose all their money, they can lose their house, they can get stressed, they can get depressed in extreme situation. Someone who lost all their money and is in debt may commit suicide. So now I can think about my impact on the world, that it is not purely positive, that what I'm doing may have some negative consequences. And it is a great privilege to be able to choose the companies that you work for. And not everyone has such privilege. But once I realized that my skills are valuable and that I do not have to choose just, I don't need to be part of certain company that I don't want to. I can choose what will be my impact on the world, and where I will be working. And uh, everyone has different worldview, right? Everyone has different feeling of ethics. For example, when I receive a message from Facebook recruiters, I reply them, "Thank you, I'm not interested because I believe that Facebook is not a good company." But it doesn't mean that Facebook is not a good company. This is just my belief. This is what I how I feel about this company as a whole. Even though I'm user of Facebook, it helped me to reach out to my old friends, to reconnect with family members, etc. I think that right now, as a company, they have more negative impact on the world, and I wouldn't be happy working there. Uh, Again, that's not to say that everyone has to have such view. This is about your own ethics, your own worldview. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you find a company where you are happy about where the values of the company are aligned with your own personal values, that will make you much happier there. If you do something that is against your own principles, then even if you will be paid well, you will be stressed, you will be unhappy, you will be thinking that, okay, I'm actually not doing anything very good for the world. And I believe that part of my burnout that I worked for a company that was in advertising industry, the ad tech industry. And I'm a person who has strong feelings against the ad tech because of the privacy, because of tracking users, etc. So I had this feeling that, during evenings on my private laptop, I have all the ad blockers turned on, while during day I'm working on putting more ads on the internet. And that made me feel less happy, more stressed. And I felt that this partially led to my burnout. And the last point that I want to make here, it may sound like a cliche that software development is about people. Of course, everything is about people, right? What am I talking about? But I think that as programmers, we often have this opinion that we are not very social people, that we choose software development because we want to work with machines, not people. But very few people write code for the sake of writing code. We write code because we want to achieve something, and that something is help other people to do their tasks, to do something, to achieve something that they want. Everything is about helping others. And I think as soon as we realize that people are central of opportunities that we do not think about. And let me share a few examples here. So I got my second job because a friend of mine introduced me to someone. We were at some event, and I was going to move to Spain to continue my studies there. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, Greg, meet Felipe. He lives in Valencia, where you will be living. Maybe you guys can, I don't know, have a chat." And we had a very brief chat. We talked for 5 minutes, and that's it. And a few months later, when I was in Valencia, I wanted to have a part-time job. And because my studies were not that involving, so I had a lot of free time, so I wanted a part-time job. I wrote to Felipe, I just said, "Hey, I'm Gregory. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm in the town now, and I'm looking for some part-time job. Maybe you know someone who's hiring Ruby programmers." And he just replied, "Actually, I'm hiring. How about you come to the office next week?" And I worked with him for a couple of months, and I learned a lot. And I got another job, a job where I lived in Singapore. I got it because I went to a tech conference, and organizer of that conference, a few months later, we haven't talked for all this time, but I followed him on Twitter, and he tweeted that a friend of his is looking for Ruby programmers in Singapore. And I just wrote, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but if you could introduce me to your friend, I might be interested. And a month later, I signed a contract, and later I moved to Singapore. And the last case is the other way around. I also helped other people uh, to get a job. And that's a funny anecdote because I had this great friend. We shared a dormitory when we were students. We lived together in one room, and he always said that everyone in our class, and we were like 200 people studying computer science, that everyone is a potential competitor. He always told me, Greg, these are not your friends, they are your competitors. You will be applying for the same job, and they might get it and you will not get it. Uh, and I always thought that, software development will be such a big market that I will not have to worry too much about getting a job. And even if someone gets a job that I don't get, maybe they will be able to help me. Maybe they will be able to refer me or to help me, when there is another position open. And what happened with that friend is that when I got my first job, my boss 2 weeks later asked me, hey, Greg, you study computer science. Maybe some of your friends at university would like to work for us. And I told it to that friend who I lived with. And a week later, he was working with us. Uh, so that was pretty funny how his view changed almost immediately after he joined. And what's even funnier is that right now, it's 11 years later, his full-time job right now is he works for someone that he met in our first job. So the fact that we studied together, the fact that I just told him, hey, why don't you join us in this company, led him through 10 years of his career, led him through all these 10 years to a point where he's head of engineering now in a company that he knows because of that first job. But it's not only about helping others regarding job, regarding work. It's I think in general, in software development, we pay too little attention to people around us, and I think that we can help each other and learn a lot from each other. And the last slide that I have here is it may sound a bit cynical, but I really think that who you know can matter a lot. That sometimes certain doors can open for you just because you know someone, because you had a couple of minutes chat with someone, maybe because I don't know, you saw someone's video online or you saw someone's tweet and say, hey, or article and say, hey, I really liked it. That's really cool. And you start chatting and that can open a lot of doors for you. Uh, I got a lot of opportunities thanks to people that I met, even though uh, I'm an I'm kind of introvert and uh, I'm not a kind of a person that starts a conversation, but I learned to at least go to people, say, hey, I like your work, or can I contribute to your project, etc. And all these things opened a lot of doors that I never thought that I would be able to go through that doors. So I think that's what I want to leave you today with. And yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, not necessarily about the presentation, but also about, I don't know, working, living in Europe, being engineering manager or software developer, yeah, let's go through some questions.
Okay, thank you so much. This was a very good presentation. It was really interesting, and I think there was some really good advice in there for everyone. We sent out a form and got a couple questions in advance, and I'm sure if anyone else has questions, they can type it. Okay, yeah. Someone asked, what are non-technical skills that a coder needs? So, what do you recommend in that case? Or
Mm, so there's quite a few. I would say that uh, communication, and especially communication with non-technical people, is a key. If you can explain technical problems to someone who does not understand programming, who cannot, distinguish Java from JavaScript, if you can be the person that can connect these two worlds, you will go very far, because there are a lot of people in programming who don't want to do it. It means that there is often a gap between these two groups. And that's also where a lot of organizations struggle on the boundaries between departments. So I would say that this is number one, but also communication within a team. If you can communicate well during code reviews, during pair programming, if you can, be not very blunt in your communication, but empathy is very important. Understanding other people. These are great things that are often neglected, and they can help you go very far. I think time management is important. As software developers, we are often interrupted by other people. Like, there is a bug and they are coming to ask you. Someone from product management comes and wants some help from you, etc., etc. I think that being able to split your work into smaller pieces and to manage your time, to schedule some time for work that is outside of your scope, to schedule some time for dealing with emails, etc. This is a key. You can increase your productivity by ensuring that there are periods of time where you do with different things and that you set these boundaries. Uh, what else? I think that writing is a very important skill, and I mean writing, in human language. Because what is programming? Programming is about translate and something that you want to express from human language to very limited grammar, which is a programming language, right? Programming languages have like 30 or 40 keywords, while English language has thousands of words. So if you are a good writer, if you can form your thoughts well, because being a good writer means that you can explain things very clearly, then I think that you will be a good programmer. And I don't have any research, but you can find it that being a writer, uh, or in other words, better programmers than good mathematicians. We often think about programming as something of it's technology, right? So we need to be good in mathematics, in physics, etc. No, you need to be a good writer. You need to be good in expressing your thoughts. That will make you a good coder.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. I have another question, and this one is more related to education, and this is something we hear a lot. So, does a master's graduate have more chances at being employed than a bachelor's graduate in software, or does it, what do you think here?
Mhm. I think that you will get a job no matter what.
Uh,
I did masters, and uh, I don't think that it had a great value. There are certain situations where it helps. For example, in some countries, visa is easier if you have a master degree.
mhm,
Outside of that, I don't think that's very helpful. Maybe, for example, if you want to work and live in Germany at some point and do your master degree, then you will get it easier to get a working visa. But I think that's it.
mhm.
Besides, I think that my master was experience that I got early in my career was much more valuable, at least for the employers, than the degree itself.
Yeah, okay. Great. Yeah, okay. So another question is a bit related to the question about non-technical skills, but
Mhm.
in this case, it's what are some non-coding tools one should learn before working in software? So
Mm,
non-coding tools.
mhm. Mm, I don't know if there are some specific tools because they are very limited to certain companies, right? Like in different contexts, you will have to use different tools. For me, right now, one of the most important tools is my email client, because a big part of my job is writing emails. Unfortunately, I think that that doesn't have to be a specific tool, but having a way to organize your notes and your thoughts in a structured way so that you can later find them, that will be a huge help. Because you will notice that a lot of companies have some internal wikis, some internal knowledge sharing tools, and all these tools are a mess. The information is outdated. It is very difficult to find it, and the same happens with your notes. So I have some idea, I write it down, but later, where is it? Is it in my documents? Is it in my download folder on my desktop? If you can organize your thoughts, your knowledge, if you can organize your ideas, that will give you a big advantage. And besides that, I don't think that there are any specific tools. I think that you need to think more about terms of skills, and then the tools will be supporting those skills.
Okay. Great. All right. We have a couple more questions.
Sure.
One of them, great. One of them asked, "Is it better to work at a small startup or a big corporate
Oh,
company?"
that that is a difficult question. So the answer, unfortunately, is it depends. But I will give you some hints so that you can decide for yourself which one is better. My experience is mostly from smaller companies. Uh, I worked at two corporates. For me, there was a problem with corporates, which is that things are moving slower there. At one point, I had to wait a couple of days before getting an access to a tool that I needed. So for a week, I was almost unable to do my work. But that might be just a matter of that particular corporate. Corporates are better when it comes to structured progress. In startups, very often there is no competency framework, there is no career ladder. You have to figure out a lot of stuff on your own. So you will struggle because you will ask your boss, okay, I want to become a senior developer, what do I do? And your boss doesn't know because it's the first time that he's a manager, and he hasn't ever promoted anyone to senior position. So I think if you like to have a structure, if you would like to make a visible progress, uh, corporates are great. Now corporates are also very different. I think that working at Google or Microsoft, you will feel that this is the place of innovation. This is the place where things happen. And I have some friends working for these companies, and they are extremely happy there. If you will be working for, a more traditional corporation, like a bank that is not one of these modern banks, then that might be a bit more difficult. You might feel a bit mm, maybe stifled, limited in what you can achieve. These companies have very strict structure, and sometimes you want to achieve something, but it's not possible. When it comes to startups, it's often a hit or miss. So you might join a startup, a year later, it might not exist anymore. I was lucky enough that I joined a startup as employee number three, and that startup over 4 years grew to 100 people. That allowed me to get promoted quickly because at some point we had 10 programmers and they needed a manager. So I became that manager. So in that sense, working at a startup is really great. At the startup, I had a chance to learn a lot about business. And I think that this is also important as a software developer. If you understand the business and how can you help the business, then you can work at a startup. Working at the startup allows you to wear different hats. One day you are writing code, another day you are interviewing people, yet another day you are helping customer support because there was a downtime and there are lots of calls, lots of emails. So yeah, I think that you need to decide for yourself. But both experiences can be great, but that depends a lot on the specific companies.
Great. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Another question we have is, how do I stay valuable to my employer and not get fired? Um, you know, I guess it's about staying afloat.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say in that case?
Uh, so the first point that I made today is that you are being paid for the problems you solve. So people often pay attention to staying relevant in terms of the technical skills. Let's say I used to work with Angular JS. Now nobody uses Angular JS anymore, right? So if I didn't upgrade my skills, if I didn't write Angular 2 or some other new frameworks like React, then it would be harder for me to find a job. Uh, but there are a few, I believe, more important things. First is being able to transfer skills between different libraries and how do you libraries, tools, languages, whatever, and how do you do that is that you need to understand the fundamentals. If you only learn Python and you only know how it works from, I don't know, web development perspective, it will be hard for you to learn something new. But if you know fundamentals, and by studying CS you learn a lot from it, if you understand data structures, if you understand the basics of programming languages, how they work inside, then learning Python or later learning, I know, JavaScript or C, it's much easier. So I think making your skills transferable, being able to learn new things quickly is critical, because learning is also a skill. Some people learn things faster because they know how to learn efficiently. So that's very important. And one other thing is that uh, you are paid to solve problems, right? So if you understand the business and if you learn how via your work, via the work of your team, you can make the business go better. You can make smarter decisions. That will be valuable for your employer. Uh, to be fair, though, I think that you shouldn't be really worried about getting fired because most, like software development is such a huge market right now that once you get your first job, later it's much easier to find new jobs. And people change jobs every 2 or 3 years just because there are so many opportunities and they want to try different things. Uh, but yeah, I think that what's important not to get fired is also to understand what are the expectations of your employer and how are you doing. So continuous feedback from your manager, from your boss is very important and allows to avoid unpleasant surprises.
Okay, great. The final question is a bit, general, but it's more like,
Mhm.
it's like, how do I get the first job? Like the others, they come easy. How do you just break that? I think that's something in Lebanon people struggle with a lot.
Mhm.
It's always about that very first one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right that getting first job is the most difficult part. Once you get it, later it's much easier to switch. Especially now during pandemic, where lots of people work from home, getting a junior developer position is harder because companies, they put hiring on hold, and even if they resume hiring, they mostly hire more critical positions like seniors. Uh, so, how to do it? There are a couple of things. Uh, First, you need to be prepared to apply for lots of jobs because right now they are like, there are many more candidates at every position than before. So, do not get discouraged by getting rejections or being ghosted. That just happens a lot for junior developers right now. uh, Build connections. This is so important, and almost everyone ignores it. Even if a company doesn't have a position right now, you can still write to them and ask them and say, hey, if you know something later, just let me know. I got my first job. I, I got my first job as a Ruby programmer. I couldn't write Ruby, but I found this company that was looking for Ruby developers, and on LinkedIn I wrote to one of the founders saying, "Hey, I'm Gregory. I'm a student. I think I can learn fast. I don't know Ruby yet, but I will be working hard and I will learn it. How about you give me an internship, and after a month or two we will see whether you can hire me." And they said, "Okay, yeah, let's give it a go." So sometimes the companies they do not announce the junior positions, but you can still write them and say, hey, maybe you have something. Uh, Another thing is how wide are you applying versus how deep are you applying. What I mean is that you can send hundreds of resumes, the same resume hundreds of times to 100 different companies, or you can choose smaller number of companies and change your resume so that you can emphasize things that will be interesting to that company. It is a bit harder if you do not have professional experience, but for example, if you apply to company that produces some medical device or biotechnology company. Then in your resume, you can emphasize the courses or the projects that you did that were related to that. This will be more interesting to the companies than, like, if you send a generic resume, the same resume to everyone. It is difficult to do because it is very time consuming. So if you apply to a lot of companies, it you cannot change your resume for every single company. That's just so that takes so much time. But let's say you send 50 applications. Think about, okay, which 10 of the companies am I interested the most? For these 10 companies, customize your resume, check about the company, who works there. You can, for example, you can contact someone from that company on LinkedIn. By the way, developers hate LinkedIn, but it's a tool that can help you really a lot. So you can contact someone from that company and say, hey, I want to apply to this company and I have some questions about it. Maybe we could have a chat, or maybe you can answer me questions in email. And that's how you slowly build connections. And during university, if you get some internships, if you participate in some student activities with some companies, try to talk to people there. Uh, for example, at my university, a lot of people participated in some Microsoft Day, and there were programmers who used to be a student at my university, used to be students at my university, and they worked for Microsoft. And people talked to them, they got their business cards, they wrote them an email, and later applied for internships. And those people, like, say, hey, actually, yeah, I chatted with that student and he was good. How about we bring him on board? So making meaningful connections is very helpful. Now there is a fine line here because sometimes the connections feel very transactional, right? You're thinking about this like a role-playing game. Oh, I'm going to talk to that person and then I will get, I don't know, a thumbs up when they look for an intern. No, you need to be more, it cannot be so transactional. It needs to be more intellectual curiosity that you have certain company and certain person. But yeah, again, I don't know when all of you graduate, but right now it is difficult for junior developers to find positions. So be ready that this might take more time than you expected. And shameless self-promotion, I've been working on a video series on my channel where I talk to recruiters and CTOs in Europe about advice when it comes to finding a job as a software developer. And in 2 weeks, I will publish episode that is specific to junior developers. So I asked 4 different people about applying for a job as a junior developer. And some of them are recruiters, some of them are CTOs, and they gave me some advice that they shared. So it will be live in 2 weeks. You can check it out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for all this very valuable advice. It was a pleasure having you, and it was a really, really interesting event.
Thank you
That's
so
it for
much.
questions. Yeah, no more questions.
All right, perfect. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for participating, for all these great questions. Yeah, I hope you have a good night and a great, great weekend.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you. Awesome.